Data structure. This is a second chapter in computer science part 1, or we can say software part. Now students, this chapter comes for 17 marks in your board exams with options. So what is data structure? Data structure means a way to organize and store the data in the computer memory. So how we can store the data? That will be tell by the different types of data structure. So we have different types of data structures that we can discuss later. So initially we can discuss all these terms that are related to the data structure. So first term is data. Data means raw facts and figures. Raw facts and figures means initially if we want to gather some information about any person or any object, then we can collect the data from different sources, and that data is random data. And after collecting the data, then afterwards we can organize that data into any format. So initially the raw facts and figures that are collected for any of the person or any of the object, that is known as a data. For example, we have a person with name Mahi. Okay students, so this is the name of the person, and other information that we have collected about this person is her qualification. So her qualification is BALLB, and the another information we have collected is its address. So 101 GB Road, Elita, Thane. So this is the address. The other information we have collected about her is status. So her status is married. So her status is married. So students, this is the data that we have collected about this person. So this is known as a data. Next one is the information. When we can organize the collected data into certain format, then we can call that organized data as a information. So that means organized and meaningful data is known as a information. Now students, if we are going to organize this data, then what we can write? Initially we have to write the name of the person, for which we have to specify the information, and after specifying the name, now we can write, either we can write her qualification or we can write her status. So married, and afterwards we can write her qualification, and finally we can write the address, that is 101 Elita GB Road, Thane. So that means once we are organized, or once we are change the format of the data into the certain format, or in the meaningful information, into the meaningful format, that is known as a information. So organized and the meaningful data is known as the information. Next one is the entity. Students, now entity is something which is having some properties and the attributes which may assign certain values. It is something having attributes, or we can say properties, which may assign certain values. So students, now what is entity? Entity is either any object, or entity is either any person or anything entities. For example, we have entity with name student. So student is a entity. Now entity is something having attributes or properties. So what are the properties of the student? The properties of the student are his or her name. The another property is her or his roll number. Another property standard, other property marks. So these are the properties of this student entity. Now after this, it is something having attributes which may assign certain values. That means for these properties we have to assign certain values. For example, this is the student, and student is having properties name, roll number, standard and marks, but we have to assign certain values to these fields also. So suppose first student is XYZ. So XYZ is the value while name is the attribute. Next one is roll number. So suppose roll number is 1. So 1 is the value and roll number is the attribute. Next one is the standard. So standard is 11. So 11th is the value and standard is property. Next one is a mark. So 100 marks. Now students, this first row is this first row is attribute, or we can say a properties, and second row is the value. So entity is student and attribute here is name, roll number, standard and marks, while value is XYZ 1, 11 and 100. So entity is something having attributes or properties which may assign certain values. Next is the entity set. So entity set means the collection of all the entities, that is known as the entity set. For example, student, we have first entity, second entity suppose we have person, third entity we have suppose fruits. So these are the entities. So collectively all the entities comes under the entity set. So entity set is collection of all the entities. So here we have student entity, person entity, fruit entity, or we can say a car entity, we can say house entity. So these all are the entities, and all these entities have certain values. For example, for person what are the attributes? Name attribute, his or her address attribute, his or her qualification, his or her job attributes, status, whether it is married or whether he is married or not. So these are the properties for person. Next one is the fruit. For fruit entity, what are the attributes? For example, color, taste. So these are the attributes for fruit. Next one is the car. For car, what are the attributes? For example, color of the car, tires of the car, type of engine of the car, and these are the properties for car. Next, for house. House, what are the properties? For house, the properties are number of rooms, size of room. So these are the properties for house. So all these are the entities, and collectively it is known as the entity set. Next one is a field. So students, field is a single elementary unit of information of a entity. So here, single elementary unit of information. So that means each and every single information about a entity is known as a field. So here it is, single elementary unit of information is known as a field. Now you see students, in this entity box, what is the field? XYZ is a field, 1 is a field, 11 is a field, 100 is a field. So that means field is a single elementary unit of information. Each and every information that can represent the entity is known as a field. So here XYZ 1, 11, 100. If we have another information, for example, we have another student with name MNO, and his roll number is 2, and his standard is 11th, and marks are 99. So that means again MNO is a single field, 2 is a field, 11 is a field, and 99 is a field. So that means in this table there are 8 fields. So that is the field. So single elementary unit of information is known as a field. Next one is a record. So now students, record is a collection of field value of the given entity. You can see here we have two person in this table. First person with name, or first student with name XYZ, and second student with name MNO. So XYZ is a single field while MNO is another field. And what is record? Record is a collection of all the fields of a given entity. So we can say that for XYZ, this is a one record, this one is a second record. So in this table we have 2 records. First record is this record, and second record is this record. So the collection of field record is collection of field of a given entity, that is known as a record. Now students, next one is file. So what is file? File is a collection of a record in a given entity set. Now you can say this whole table is a file. So that means file is a collection of number of records. So here in this table we have 2 records. So that means this file contains the collection of 2 records of 2 different students. So this is a file. So collection of records in a given entity set. In a given entity set is known as a file. Now students, after this we have next term, that is primary key. So primary key is a key using which we can uniquely identify the record or a field of a entity. Now you can see how we can uniquely identify the record or field of any student. Now you can see for in this table name, for 2 students the name will be same, should be same, ठीक है, या हो भी सकता है, नहीं भी हो सकता है. But second one is standard. For number of students the standard is also same. Probability and the marks of number of students is also same. So which field we can make as a primary key? Primary key we have to make which can uniquely identify the record. So students, here the roll number which is assigned by the school for each and every student in a particular standard is different. So that means using the roll number we can uniquely identify the record or a field of any entity. So here name may or may not be same of number of students. Similarly standard may or may not be same for a number of students and same for the marks. But here the roll number field is different for each and every entity in this table. So here we can assign this field as a primary key. So primary key is a key which can uniquely identify the record of particular entity. So if we are entering 1, so that means directly by entering 1, the record of the person or the record of the student with roll number 1 will be opened. Now after this we have a group item. So group item means the items which can be further divided into number of parts. Means a item which is divided into sub items is known as a group item. See students, for example we have address. So address we can divide it into sub items. For example, initially we can write the house number, after this we can write the society number, and after society we can write the name of the locality. After locality we can write the name of street, then we can write the name of town, and afterwards we can write the name of the state, and afterwards we can write the name of the country. So that means that is known as a group item. So items which can be divided into sub items. For example, second example is name. So name we can divide it into 3 parts. First name, middle name, last name. So this is a group item, and here address is a group item. Next one is the elementary items. So elementary items are the items which we cannot divide it into sub items. Likewise in case of group items. See students, here what are the elementary items? For example, first name. We cannot divide further this first name into sub items. So that means here the elementary item is first name, middle name and last name. Same house number. House number we cannot divide it into sub parts. Society name also we cannot divide it into sub parts. So here house number, society number, locality, street, town, these are the elementary items. Or another example is pin code. So pin code is also the elementary item which cannot be divided into sub items. So this is all about the terms that are related to the data structure. So these are the 6 different data operations which we can perform on the data structure. Now students, data structure is a way to organize and store the data in the computer memory efficiently. So the data structure is in such a way that user can easily search the data elements, or user can easily store the data in the in any of the data structure. Now students, data structure is of two types. First type is a linear data structure, while second type is a non-linear data structure. So we have two different types of the data structure where we can store our data in the computer memory. First is the linear structure. In case of the linear data structure, the data is stored in a linear order. For example, if A is stored here, then the next data element is connected with the previous data element. Similarly, the next data element is connected with this B. So that means there is a connection between number of data items in case of the linear data structure, and all the data elements are either in the form of sequence or in the form of linear order. Second is the non-linear data structure. Now students, in case of non-linear data structure, the data elements are not in the sequence, or that means they are not in the linear order. For example, if we can take the example with three items A, B and C, so these are not directly connected with each other, they may be indirectly connected with one another. For example, here A, B, C and D, four items we have, and A, so these are connected like this. So that means A is not directly connected with the D. A is indirectly connected with the D. Likewise, A can directly connected with B and C. But if A wants to communicate with B, then either A will take this path or A will take this path. So that is a non-linear data structure. Now see students, we can see the difference between linear and the non-linear data structure. This topic is very important according to your points, according to your board's point of view. First is data elements are arranged in sequence or in the linear order. So in case of the linear data structure, the data elements are arranged in the linear order, while in case of the non-linear data structure, the data elements are arranged in a non-linear order. Next one is single level is involved. That means there are arrays involved in order to save the data, and arrays are 1D arrays. So that means only single level is there. Suppose if we want to store these items, so A is stored here and afterwards B is stored and then C is stored. So that means only single level is maintained in case of the linear data structure, while in case of the non-linear data structure, multiple levels are involved. For example, this example you can take. This is the first level where A element is there. This is the second level where B and C two elements are there. This is the third level where D is there. So this is the non-linear data structure where multiple levels are involved in order to store the data elements. Next one is traversing all the elements at once. See students, if we want to visit or process the data elements, so it is easy in case of linear data structure, and we can traverse all the data elements in one go. Suppose if we want to multiply all these data elements with 5, so with single command we can multiply all these data elements, because all the data elements are in the single level. While in case of the non-linear data structure, if we want to traverse, then it is not possible. Why? Because in a single run we can only implement one level. Suppose if we want to multiply all these elements with 5, so initially we have to multiply the data elements in the first level with 5, and afterwards we have to traverse second level with 5, and after that we have to multiply the third level with 5. So that means in order to traverse A, B, C, D, we require three traversing process. But in case of the linear data structure, if we want to process A, B, C and D, then in a single run we can traverse all the data elements. Afterwards, linear data structure is easy to implement while it is hard to implement. Now students, linear data structure is easy to implement because in a single level we have to store all the data elements, while in case of the non-linear data structure, implementation is tough because we have to maintain different levels in order to store the data. Next is not uses the memory efficiently. In case of the linear data structure, the memory required in the consecutive manner. For example, if the first data element in 1001, then second will be stored in 1002 memory location. So that means here the memory is not uses efficiently. For example, we have 100 records which we want to save in the memory, but consecutive 100 memory locations are not vacant. So that means in this case we are unable to store the data in the memory, while it can uses the memory efficiently. For example, if the memory space is available in the different parts of the memory, then we can store the data in the different parts. So that means it can uses the memory efficiently. Next one is, it is mainly used in the application software development. If we want to, if we are creating any software, so the data related to the software we can store in the linear data structures. While in case of the image processing and artificial intelligence, we can use the non-linear data structure, because here the data which we want to store is huge, and for huge data we can use the memory which is located in the different parts, because in the memory the consecutive memory location is not available. So if we are using artificial and image processing in case of the linear data structure, so we are not able to store the data, because these applications have huge data to store, and for huge data to store we need a memory in the computer. But the consecutive memory or the contiguous memory locations are not available. So that means we can use the non-linear data structure in order to store these type of applications. Next is the example of linear data structure is stack, queue, array and linked list. So student, these are the linear data structures, and graphs and trees are the non-linear data structure. So this is the basic difference between linear and non-linear data structure. Now we can see the different operations that are related to the data structure. So what are the operations that we can perform within the data structure? First one is traversing. So first operation that we can perform with the data structure is traversing. Now students, traversing means to process and visit the data, each and every data element of the data structure. That is known as the traversing. Means suppose we have data elements 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So these are stored in any of the data structure. So traversing means to process each and every data element of the data structure. So initially we can process these. This means we can execute this, and after that we can execute this, then 3, then 4 and then 5. So this is known as the traversing. So traversing always starts from the first location till the last location. For example, if we want to print all the data elements of this data structure, so we can apply the print command using for loop, and in for loop we can start from 1 to 5. So that means this print command will run 5 times, and this print command will print all the 5 data elements that are present in this data structure. So traversing means to visit each and every data element from the data structure. Second one is searching. Searching means to search or to find the data element from the data structure. Suppose if we have a data structure with 5 data elements, and if we want to search 5 data element from this data structure, so we can perform different searching operations in order to search the data element from the data structure. So in our data structure we have linear search. So linear search is an algorithm using which we can find the data element in the data structure. Second, we have searching algorithm, that is binary search. So using these two, binary search and linear search algorithms, we can search any data element from the data structure. Third one is the sorting. Sorting means arrange the data elements that are present in the data structure either in the ascending order or in the descending order. For example, we have data elements present in the data structure are 1, 5, 7, 8 and 9. So sorting means we can either sort these in the ascending order or in the descending order. So after sorting, it will be if we can sort it in the descending order, then it will be 9, 8, 7, 5, 1. So this is a sorting process, and in our data structure we have a algorithm, that is bubble sort. So bubble sort is the algorithm which we can use to sort the data element in the data structure. After this, fourth type of operation that we can perform with the data structure is merging. Merging means to merge or to combine different records into single record. For example, we have one record of a student with name Amit, and we have second record of a student with name Shanaya. So that means using merging algorithm we can merge these two records, and we can put these two records in a single file. So here Amit is there and second record is of Shanaya. So both collectively known as a single file. So single file is a collection of number of records. So in order to collect the number of records, we can use the merging process. After merging, we have insertion operation. So students, insertion means to insert or to add any data element in the data structure. So we can add the data element at the end, at the start, or in the mid. So anywhere we can insert any new data element into the data structure. That is known as the insertion. For insertion, we have a insert algorithm with name insert algorithm. So insertion means to add or to insert any data element into the existing data structure. Afterwards, we have last type of data operation is deletion. So deletion means if we want to delete any existing data element from the data structure, so we can delete that data element from that. So that means these are the different operations that we can perform with the data structure. We can insert any new data element, we can delete any existing data element, we can search any item, we can sort it, we can sort the data elements that are present in the data structure, we can merge different records or different fields together, or we can traverse the data elements within the data structure. So these algorithm is a finite step-by-step solution for any particular problem. For example, we have a problem to add two numbers. So in order to add two numbers, what are the steps required? First step is we have to take two values which we want to add. After this, we have to take another variable where we can store the addition of two numbers. And in the second step, what we can do, we can write sum is equal to the values which we are taking and which we want to add. Okay, students, so in the second step, we can calculate the sum of these two numbers and store in the sum variable. And in the third step, we can print the sum variable so that it will be shown to the user. So these are the steps that are used to solve any problem. So for any problem, there are the number of finite steps that we have to follow, or that computer has to follow in order to provide the output. Now students, after this, algorithm is divided into two parts. First part is known as a paragraph part, and second part is known as a algorithm itself. So paragraph means it contains the purpose of the algorithm. What is the purpose of the algorithm and which type of variables are used in the algorithm that are mentioned in the paragraph part. For example, if we are taking again the example of sum of two numbers, so what will be the paragraph? Paragraph means title of the algorithm. So in order to calculate the sum of two numbers, we have to write sum and we have to declare the variables, for example A, B, and after this we can declare third variable as add. So that means these are the two variables and the addition of these two variables will be stored in the add variable. So this is known as the paragraph of the algorithm, because it can define the number of variables that we are using in the algorithm, and it also specify the purpose. So purpose will be reflected by the name of the algorithm. So here it is written sum. So that means in this algorithm we are going to calculate the sum of numbers. Now students, after this second part of the algorithm is algorithm itself. So algorithm are the number of steps which are used to solve the problem. So the number of steps, either they can go sequentially or the control will transfer to some other location. For example, suppose we have 10 lines of the program. So either it can go sequentially from 1 to 2 second step, then second to third, third to fourth, and fourth to fifth, and so on. Either it can skip the second part, or directly after one the control will go to the third step. So this is how the algorithm will be executed. So algorithm means the number of steps that are involved to solve this algorithm. Either the control will move from one location to the another location, or all the steps are executed in the sequence manner from first step to the nth steps. So this is algorithm. Now students, in algorithm we have number of notations that are used while we are writing the algorithm. Means there are certain syntax that we have to follow while we are writing the algorithm. First is start and stop. Every time when we are going to start writing the algorithm, then we have to start it with the start variable, and at the end, once the algorithm, all the steps we have written, and at the end we have to write the stop, or we can say we have to write the exit. So either we can use exit variable or we can write stop variable. So suppose this is the problem which we want to solve. So this is the paragraph part, and after that we have to write step 1 and start with the start variable. Okay students, after this, now students, if we want to read any value from the user, then we have to use read. Suppose we have to get the values from the user of A and B variables. So what we can do, we can write here read A and B. That means now we are going to read the values of A and B from user. After this, after calculating the sum of A and B, now we have to create the add variable so that it will be displayed on the output screen. So in order to print, we can write either print variable or we can write write. Okay students, so that means in the step 2 we are going to read the values of A and B, and after this in the step 3 we have to write add is equal to A plus B. So the sum of A and B will go into the add variable. Now students, in the step 4 what we have to do, now we have to print the variable add. So what we can do, either we can write print add or we can write write add. Now after this, in the step 5th we can write exit or we can write stop. So that means this is the end of this algorithm. Now third is controls. Controls are the control structures using which we can develop the logic for a program. Suppose we have to execute a program where if I is greater than 2, only then we can execute the statement, but if this condition is false, then we are not going to execute these statements. So these type of the logics are applied on the program using any of the control structures. So in our algorithms we have 3 types of the control structures. First is the sequence, where each and every step will be executed one by one. Second one is the selection. Selection means if the condition is true, then the number of statements will be executed. If the statement is not true, then another set of statements may or may not be executed. Third type is the iteration. Iteration means the loop will run again and again until the condition is true. Once the condition is false, only then it will exit from the program. This topic we will study in detail, okay students. And after this we have the variables. So in every algorithm we have to use the number of variables. So variables we can write in the capital letters or we can write in the lowercase. If we are writing here these variables in the capital letters, so that means in all the steps we have to write these variables only in the capital letters. You are not allowed to change the uppercase into the lowercase or from the lowercase into the uppercase. So that means if you are declaring these variables in the uppercase, then in the complete or whole algorithm you have to use these variables with only uppercase. So for example, we have variables a, b, we can write sum, we can write multiply. So these are the variables. Next one is the comments. Now students, comments are for user reference, so that the user will easily understand what the logic is written in the algorithm. For example, here for example, we have a step that is I mod 2 equal to 0. So that means this logic is not understandable by all the users. So in the comments we can write the explanation of this line. So what we can write, if the remainder of number is equal to 0, then we can execute the statement. So that means, in short, we can give the explanation of this line in the comment. So the comments will be always written within the square brackets. So students, start with the notation. First is start and stop. When we are going to start the algorithm, we have to start with the start variable, and at the end we have to write either exit or stop in the last step. Next is the read and write. When we are going to get any value from the user, then we can use read variable, and when we want to display the values, then we have to use either write variable or the print variable. After this, if we want to develop any logics, or if we want to write any logics in our program, then we can use any of the control structure. Next is a variable. In every algorithm we have to use number of variables. So while we are using the number of variables, then we have to take care about the uppercase and the lower case. Next one is the comments. Comments are for the user reference. That means it will provide the explanation about any logic that is written in any of the steps. So comments will always be in the square brackets. So this is about the algorithm. Now we can study about the control structures. Control structure. So students, control structure is a logic that we have to use in order to write any algorithm or any program. Now students, control structure is of three types. First is sequence, second is selection, and third one is iteration. So we can see one by one. First is the sequence flow. Sequence flow means the flow of data is from first statement to the last statement. For example, in our program we have 10 lines. So 10 lines, so the data will be flowed from the first line to the 10th line. No line will be skipped in case of the sequence flow. So that means in case of the sequence flow, each and every line will be executed by the programmer. Second one is the selection logic. In case of selection logic, we have three types. First is single alternative, second is double alternative, and third one is the multiple alternative. Now students, in case of the single alternative, we have only one choice. So if the choice or if the condition is true, then the set of statements will be executed, and if the condition is not satisfied, then we can skip that module and we can go at the end of the program. For example, we have a variable, and if the value of a is greater than 5, then we can print the value of a, and if the value of a is not greater than 5, then we cannot do anything, and then we can write and if. So that means if this condition is true, only then this statement or module will be executed, otherwise nothing will be happen. Okay, and the programmer or the compiler will go at the end of the loop. So this is a single alternative. So if the condition is satisfied, only then this module will be executed, otherwise nothing will be happen. And this is the syntax. That means if the condition is true, only then the module A will be executed, and this is the end of if structure. Second is double alternative. In double alternative, whether the condition is true and whether the condition is false. If the condition is true, then module A will be executed, and if the condition is false, then the module B will be executed. So you can see in this syntax, if condition is true, then module A will be executed, else module B will be executed, and at the end we can write end of if structure. So you can see again in this example, if value of A is greater than 5, that means we can print the value of A, else we can print unsuccessful. So likewise you have to give two choices in case of the double alternative, whether the condition is true and whether the condition is false. So for both the cases you have to write the set of statements, but in case of the single alternative, if the condition is true only, then you can write the statements which you want to print, and if the condition is false, then there is no need to specify any statement which you want to specify. Third type of selection logic is the multiple alternative. Now see students, in case of the multiple alternative we have multiple conditions. In case of single alternative and double alternative we have only one condition, whether it is true or whether it is false. But in case of multiple alternative we have multiple conditions. If first condition is not satisfied, then second condition will be checked, and if second condition is not satisfied, then third condition will be checked. But if all the conditions are not satisfied, then the default statement which we have to include in this type of multiple alternative, that will be executed. Now you can see this with the help of example. If this condition 1 is true, then module A will be executed. Next is, if condition 2 will be true, then module B will be executed. Here you have to write else if. After that again you have to write else if. Else if condition 3 is true, then you have to execute module C. And if all the conditions are not satisfied, then at last you can write else, and in else you can write the default statement which will be executed if all the conditions are not satisfied. So here you can write the module N, and after the end you have to write and if. This is the end of this if else if structure. Now you can see again with the help of example. Suppose if A is greater than 5, then and B is greater than 5, then you have to print A and B. Else if, now next condition is, if A is equal to 5 and B is equal to 5, then you have to print both are equal. And if A is not greater than 5 and B is not greater than 5, and both the A and B are not equal to B, then in the else part we can print unsuccessful, and at the last we can write and if. So this is the example of multiple alternative, where we have multiple conditions. If one of the condition is not satisfied, then we can check for the next condition. Now students, you can see in this the block diagram. If condition 1 is true, then we can execute module A, but if this condition is false, then we can check for the next condition. Again, if this condition is true, then we can go to the module B, and if this condition is false, then at the last we can execute module N. So this is about the single alternative, double alternative and the multiple alternative, where we have the conditions, and from those conditions we have to execute the statements according to the condition status, whether it is true or whether it is false. Next is iterative control structure. So students, iterative control structure is also known as a repeated control structure, or we can say that a loops. So loops control structure is executed until the condition is satisfied. So the condition is satisfied, that means this loop will be repeated again and again, and once the condition is not satisfied, then it will move out from the loop. So in case of iterative control structure, we have two loops. First is the for loop and second one is the while loop. So for loop, the syntax is repeat for k is equal to r to s by t, and then we have to execute this module, and finally the end of loop. Now students, you can see this with the example. Initially we can set the value of r to k, so that means k is equal to r. Now if k is greater than s, if this k is greater than s, then we can execute this module, and after executing the module we can increment the value of k by t, and after this again we can check the condition, and once this condition will be false, then we can go from to the end of the loop. Now we can see it with the help of example. Suppose we have to print 5 numbers start from 1, and we have to print 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So that means for that we have to write repeat for k is the variable, k is equal to 1 to 5. So here r is equal to 1 and s is equal to 5, and by 1, because we have to print the values 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So that means after 1 we can print 2. So that means there is a gap of only one number. So we can write here 1. If we want to print like this 1, 3, 5, 7, so we have to write here by 2. That means every time we have to increment the value by 2. And if we want to decrement any value, then we can specify it like -1, -2, -3 and so on. And for increment, by default we are not required to use any symbol here, because if we are writing only number, that means that number is positive only. So repeat for k is equal to 1 to 5 by 1. Now here we can write print k, and after that we can write end of loop. So that means initially the value of k is equal to 1, and 1 to 5 the condition is satisfied. So it will print 1, and after this again it will be incremented by 1. So after incrementing, now the value of k is equal to 2. Then again we can check the condition 2 to 5. So again the condition is satisfied, then we can print 2. And afterwards again the k value is incremented by 1, that is by t. So here t is 1. So after this k is equal to 3, so we can print here 3. Likewise 4 and then 5. And after 5, now after incrementing the value of k, now the value of k is 6. So 6 to 5, now the loop is not satisfied. So directly it will come out from the for loop. So this is the for loop. Next is the while loop. So in case of while loop, there is a condition. If the condition is satisfied, then again and again this module will be executed until the condition is satisfied. And once the condition is not satisfied, then it will move out of the loop. So you can see same example with the help of while loop. For while loop we have to write repeat, and after repeat write while. And what is the condition that we have to write? The condition is while k is less than equal to 5, and initially we can put the value of k is equal to 1. So 1 is less than equal to 5, and after this we can write print k, and finally we have to write k is equal to k plus 1 and end of loop. Now you can see initially the value of k is equal to 1, then we can check the condition 1 is less than equal to 5, true. So we can print the value of k is equal to 1, and after that we can increment the value of k by 1. So now the value of k is equal to 2. So again we can move to the condition and we can check the condition. Now 2 is less than equal to 5, yes. Again we can print 2. And likewise we can print 3, 4 and 5. And once the value of k is incremented by 1 after printing 5, now the value of k is equal to 6. So 6 is less than equal to 5? No, that means this condition is not true. So if this condition is not true, then we are not able to execute this module. Then we have to go to the end of loop, because this condition is false. So this is how we can print 5 numbers using while loop, and this is how we can print 5 numbers using for loop. So this is all about the control structure.